Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So it says, Babu ihya al-ard bi-idhn al-imam aw bi-ghayri idhnihi. So now we are talking about a political financial issue. Okay, so let's imagine that the Muslim world so far is Mecca, Medina. Okay, you expand it down into the south, so Yemen and Oman, let's say the whole of the Arabian Peninsula is under the Muslim power. They are now extending into Iraq and into the Levant, okay, and into Egypt, okay. And now, let's imagine they're going to conquer Cyprus, right? Everyone knows where Cyprus is in the Mediterranean,
Yes.
yeah? Is everyone familiar with the Sahabiya that passed away there?
Uh,
It's a woman, right? She went on
Yes,
the expedition in the Navy. I have it in my
yes,
notes somewhere.
yeah, right? So that's like,
Yeah.
so that's amazing, right? So there was a military campaign of Cyprus, right? And the Muslims went there and they took hold of it, right? One thing just about history is, did the Muslims literally did they try and take Constantinople at that point, right? And did Sayyidina Ayyub al-Ansari, did he actually pass away there or not? I think that historically has a few question marks around it, right? So the like Sayyidina Ayyub, if you go to Fatih in Istanbul today, there's an area called Fatih in Istanbul, and there's the maqam of Sayyidina Ayyub al-Ansari, right? Basically, the idea is that they were trying to conquer Constantinople, Istanbul, and they weren't able to, and he died in that process, and he's buried there. Allahu alam, is that true or not? Anyway, they did go to Cyprus, and Sayyidat Nusayba radiallahu anha, she passed away there as a shahida. Okay, based on the dream that and the prophecy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyway, let's imagine that there's like an island, okay, around Cyprus, right? I don't know anything about the geography of Cyprus, but imagine there's an island there, okay? And you are on this expedition, okay? Um, and there's an island there, just on the outskirts of Cyprus. And that land is not owned by the Muslims and was not owned by the Muslims. So it is not, it's not, right? And it was not. Can you claim that island as yours? And if so, do you need the permission of Sayyidina Umar, who sent you initially to do that, right? So when you claim new land, how does that work? So obviously you can't claim someone else's land, right? You go up to some non-Muslim with whom you're not at war, or go to some Muslim and just steal their land. Obviously you can't do that, right? Or what if it was a Muslim land, but then it was taken from the Muslim land, such as it was Muslim land and it was taken from the Muslims, such as
Palestine.
Palestine, bigger than Palestine,
Yeah.
Andalusia.
Andalus, right? Muslim Spain and Portugal, right? And there's even a little tiny valley in Switzerland, which is really interesting. I don't quite know how it connects exactly, but there's a little valley that was actually controlled by the Muslims for 100 years. So you go and find that valley in Switzerland now, okay? That's actually somebody's property that belongs to a Muslim. It was taken, right? So Spain is a Muslim country. A child is born in the streets of Madrid today. He's born as Muslim because this is considered Muslim country that's been taken over, right? Like there's people who lived here and people who lived there, and there are generations of people who have land rights, right? We could how on earth we can even work that out, but you will find so and so like, nope, I'm from that area. That's my dad used to have a house there on the corner and da 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 da. It's people's land, right? So now we're saying nobody's there. Nobody's there. There's this island, right? It's a small island. How can you claim it, right? So he says, so that's the question here. How do you claim land like that, right? So أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا هشام بن عروة عن أبيه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Where is the gap in the chain here? Azhar. And anybody else. So it says Malik said that Hisham, the son of Urwa, Urwa is the nephew of Aisha. So the nephew of Aisha said, قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Where's the gap in the chain?
The nephew of
The
Aisha.
Sahabi. Exactly. So usually Urwa usually narrates from Aisha. That's how the normal chain. So who's he narrating from? Don't know. So obviously you could have Husn al-Dhan, just have a good opinion, say, oh, presumably it's Aisha, or somebody else who can rely on. That's fine. But technically speaking, in the way that hadith works, we are cutthroat and we're very critical. We say there's a gap in the chain here. Right? That's a gap in the chain because now his brother, Urwa's brother, Abdullah, was actually a Sahabi. He was the one of the first Sahaba to be born in Medina, right? So his mom, Asma, the sister of Aisha, she arrived in Medina and gave birth to Abdullah, right? And that's that same Abdullah ibn Zubayr who became the Khalifa or tried to become the Khalifa at least, right? But Urwa himself, right? He says Hisham narrating from Urwa. Urwa, you're the nephew of Aisha. So who did you hear this from? Okay. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من أحيا أرضا ميتة فهي له وليس لعرق ظالم حق. He says, whoever brings life to a piece of earth that is dead, فهي له, it's his, right? وليس لعرق ظالم حق. And what's the word? Um, the veins, right? Or the source, how do you say veins? It's not veins or the genes. A wrongdoing genes has no right. Okay, so you are now at a war with these non-Muslims, and you go and take over that area. So let's say they took over Cyprus or part of Cyprus as a military camp thing, as the group. You can't just come and choose things because that was with the army. But then you went off by yourself into this island and nobody was there. And so you said, that's mine. Okay? So you can do that. However, there's conditions. You can't just point it at it and make it yours. Right? You actually have to demark it. So put a wall around it. This is my land now. Right? So the idea of claiming land, right, which is either unowned totally or during war with the non-Muslims. But you cannot just turn up to non-Muslims and just take their property. Right? They're two different things. Does that make sense? Yeah, roots. Yeah, roots, I can say, yeah. The evil roots has no right. So that where it comes from, root, yeah. It's a good translation. So veins, roots, source, genes, something like that. Okay. So so the default then is with or without the specific permission of the authority. Right? And we're going to see as we study fiqh that there's difference of agreement to what extent we need religious authority. So for example, the Shafi'is, they say jihad is valid without the permission of the authorities. Meaning what? Meaning that country is not in a peace agreement with the Muslims. So therefore it's free game. You just go, right? So you didn't talk to the ruler and didn't say plan an attack or anything, right? Before or after or anything, you just went and attacked. That's fine. You can do that, right? And so you would imagine there's probably some debate on this issue because, you know, it's somewhat problematic, right? So you can imagine you're in Medina, and then you just say, "That's it. I'm just going to go and fight. I'm going to go fight by myself. I'm going to fight the Meccans by myself." Right? There's already a war going on. So do I need permission to do that? Or there's not a war going on, but there's no peace treaty. So you can't go and break a peace treaty. But if there's no peace treaty, even if there's no war, you can just go and fight. Right? So an example of that is Khairuddin al-Barbarossa. Everybody's familiar with that story? And it's kind of with permission. But basically what would happen is the Ottomans, they they would tell Muslim pirates right? Obviously, we're not involved in halal things. But Muslim pirates, go ahead, sink as many, French and Italian and Spanish ships as you want in the Mediterranean. No problem, right? Do what you want because the enemy of your enemy is your friend, right? They're like, go ahead. So Khairuddin Barbarossa is originally a pirate and the kind of a moral pirate, and then he was actually really, really good. So then he's basically part of the Ottoman navy, right? At some point, um, but that kind of idea, right? Um, or for example, yeah, going down south into Africa. So the Muslims, they basically went horizontal, right? They went across the top. They tried to go down into places like Sudan and stuff like that, but they didn't. They weren't originally successful at all. So imagine, for example, you've settled in Egypt. You say, you know what, I'm going to go and fight jihad in Sudan right now. I'm going to go down before it's even become Muslim and without permission of the ruler. But we have basically that's an area that is just that we don't have a peace treaty with them yet, and it's just we just stopped because we weren't able to have any success. So I'm going to go down myself. I'm going to get a bunch of people. We're going to go down and fight these people, right? Like that's going into jihad without permission, and then hey, you took over an area. Can you just like, oh, that's mine now, right? Can you do that? That's the issue. Go ahead, Ashad.
And so there are a lot of different scenarios. So if it is a dead land, means it was unoccupied
Unoccupied
before.
previously by Muslims.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if in the past um, one of these armies are taking over a country which was unoccupied before by the Muslims, the ownership goes to the Khilafat or the commander of the army. How does it work out? And the as you said, there
Okay,
will
so,
be
so
other
basically,
people.
if it's a personal thing, then the default is it's yours. But by conquering the area that's not enough, you have to demark it with something. Like you have to, put up like this is mine, or this is my area. Does
Uh, okay.
that make sense?
So you mean if he sees a good plot, and the commander can say, "Oh, this is mine," right?
This is mine, but then he has to mark it. He's gonna say. So you can't just look at it like a leaf on the floor. You and I are walking down the path. Say, oh, that's a huge leaf. Is it mine? Is it yours? No. When you pick it up, it's yours. Right? So the same thing with claiming land is
Okay.
like you have to claim it. Okay, you have to pick it up. Okay, how do you pick up land? Say, well, put a fence, do this, do that. You know,
Also, by default, the ownership of the existing people of that the so-called what do you say, the dead land, it becomes nullified, right?
it becomes nullified
Or
because we offer them to become Muslim and they said no. So then you said, okay, become a vassal state, own your own property, like what's that country? There's an island in not Sicily. Um, it's near Spain. There was a British colony next to Spain. It's called escapes me now. There's some island anyway, some island, big island, like in the Mediterranean. I can't remember what it's called now. And it was under the British until recently. So basically, they basically were offered to become Muslim. They said no, they were Christians. So then they were said, okay, accept the jizya. They said yeah. So basically, it was a semi-autonomous Christian state. So they paid tribute. They had crosses and all their Easter and Christmas celebrations, everything in the street, and they just basically said, "Yeah, we'll pay." That's it. So the first thing is Islam. You can rule your own country, do whatever you want. We're not here to take anything from you. Just become Muslim, do your own thing. No, okay. Keep your own property and everything yourself. Just agree to be a vassal state. Vassal state means you agree not to fight us. We agree to defend you, and you pay tribute, right? These are old medieval terms. Pay tribute meaning there's going to be a tax on every single male's head every year. You're going to pay X amount, right? And so if you pay that, And if you keep to the agreement, we will defend you. That's called dhimma. Dhimmi means we're responsible for you. So we're responsible for you, but don't you dare try and fight against us. And if you do, try and fight against us, or you join teams with other people, or you send spies, or you accept spies, you've broken the pact, and there's war now, right? So that's called act dhimma. So that could happen two ways. That could be either semi-autonomous, meaning you have your own country, and we're not involved, or you as individuals are citizens of the Muslim state. So that's, for example, in the Levant, it was like that. In the Levant, um, it was like that. The Muslims went in, they conquered the Levant, they ruled the Levant, but the Jews and the Christians just stayed there. So it was a majority Jewish and Christian place. Majority of people are Jews and Christians. And for some people, their life didn't change at all, right? So some historians, they mentioned that. They said when the Muslims, so yes, they were quite, the expansion of the Muslims was miraculous in some ways. In other ways, it wasn't. Because imagine you are a Copt peasant in Egypt and you're paying 12% tax, okay? And then somebody says, oh, these Muslims are coming in and they're going to ask you for 70% tax. You're like, yeah, sure. I'll pay 7 instead of 12. Don't mind. You know, like I'm used to being used by the like so the Byzantines were they were controlling these areas, and so the Muslims walked in and they gave a better offer, right? So for many of these people, life did not change at all. Like I'm Christian, I go to church, I just pay less. I don't have a problem, right? But these are these three stages. So now you refuse Islam and you refuse to be a vassal state. Now it's war. So what happens now is you lose your property right. You lose your you the males lose their right to live, and everybody loses their right to their property, and female children lose their freedom, and the women lose their marriage as well. So the Muslims go in, all marriages are annulled. Everybody is no ever loses their freedom. They lose their ownership, and the males lose their right to life. So women and children cannot be killed, but women, the men can. You could execute them all. You could go in there and say 10,000 men as prisoners, execute them all. You can do that, like they did at was it Khaybar? I can't remember. It wasn't. It was like 800 men or something like that. Was it Khaybar or Beni Qurayza? One of the two. I can't remember now. They executed like 800 men because they right? Because they didn't accept, they broke the act of Dhimma, right? They broke that pact. Yeah.
The Jews, right?
Yes.
So this thing, so historically,
But this is very
this was
important for
how it
India. Very important for India, right? So the Indian rhetoric is, look, these Muslims, they came. This is originally like, yeah. Well, when the so a lot of India is conquered very late, right? But it's recent history.
yeah,
It's actually quite late. It's
yeah.
not. So some of it is very early. Let's go to Pakistan, like in Sindh, that's very early. But other things that's very, very late, right? And so and also in terms of how they did Dhimma, like so for the Malikis and Hanafis, they can a Hindu can be a Dhimmi, right? You can be a Dhimmi, that's fine. Like a Hindu or a non or atheist can be a Dhimmi. For the Shafis, after Dhimma is only possible with Jews and Christians and Zoroastrians, right? And you think about originally who the Muslims going to be with. In early Islamic history, they're only dealing with those three religions: Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians of Persia. So the Zoroastrians of Persia, they could pay jizya, but you can't marry their women, you can't eat their meat. So slightly different. With the Jews and Christians, you can marry their women, you can eat their meat. But so the issue then, even just historically, like the interaction with Hindus or atheists or something else, and Spain as well, right? Muslims going to Spain, they're dealing with Jews and Christians, right? So it's kind of the Ahl Kitab. So going into India, it's a different ball game and a different fit discussion. So if notice, for example, in how did the Prophet deal with the mushrikeen of the Arabs? So everybody agrees that mushrikeen, the Arabs, they had only two options: Islam or the sword. That was their only option. If you're in Arabia and you're a mushrik, you have two options. That was it. So the Shafis, the way they look at that is the following: is that here is a Jew and a Christian, and he is waiting for Jesus to come. So the Prophet ﷺ said, soon Jesus, son of Mary, will come, breaking the crosses, killing swine, and removing the jizya, annulling the jizya, right? So if Sayyidina Isa will remove the jizya, when he comes, how relevant is he to a Hindu in Egypt, in India? So let's imagine Mughal India, right? Mughal India, India under the Muslims, okay? How relevant is the coming of Jesus to a Hindu? It's not. So they said the whole point with a Jew and a Christian is waiting for Jesus to come. So it's not just Ahl Kitab. So it's like there's a so how could you do that? That's how the Shafis look at it. The Hanafis and Malikis, they say, look, the Muslims were in Central Asia, right? They were non-Jews and Christians. They were Zoroastrians. So it doesn't matter. Any non-Muslim can be a dhimmi. Like you just pay your tax, khalas. You're exempt from serving the army, and you are our dhimma. You're like we're responsible for you, right? We have to protect you, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, Sheikh, understood.
Right?
Also, the Mughals, most of them actually assimilated eventually. Uh, and
Yeah.
they
What
weren't
what
as bad as
what do you mean?
you
What
think. They were. I mean,
what do you mean?
the courtyards were full of Hindus mostly, with all due
Exactly.
respect.
So they were, and then to sometimes to a fault, right? So I think sometimes you're going to have some of those rulers that said things that were wrong, like all religions are equal or whatever, and kind of things like that. Like that's
Yeah, yeah. Akbar was an example.
yeah.
Yes.
So that's actually wrong, right? So we have to be careful, basically. We have to be careful how we speak and how we say things and because it's like sometimes we say things that are just wrong, you know? Like, so do you believe in living in a pluralistic India? So yeah. Meaning, do you, Azhar, want to go and kill and harm your neighbors who are Hindus? No, I do not. I don't want to do that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to promote any of those things. Right? So I believe in I'm pluralistic, right? But at the same time, like saying things like that, like, oh, there's tolerance and respect. Like, do you respect all religions? No, I do not. Do you tolerate other religions? Yes, I do. But there's a difference, right? So sometimes we say things and it's like, you're not really being true to what you are. And it's not really, you're being disgenuine, right? Okay, so he quotes that chain there and he says, وأخبرنا مالك عن ابن شهاب عن سالم بن عبد الله عن عبد الله بن عمر عن عمر الخطاب قال من أحيا أرضا ميتة فهي له. Whoever brings life to a dead land, it's his. Right? قال محمد بهذا نأخذ من أحيا أرضا ميتة بإذن الإمام أو بغير إذنه فهي له. Right? So we have to understand one of the first books of fiqh and the first discussions was on these political issues, right? Kitab al-Siyar. So there was this book, Kitab al-Siyar, by al-Awza'i, that kind of like what Imam al-Awza'i in Damascus said, and then Qadi Abu Yusuf said other things, and it went back and forward and back and forward, right? It was one of these kind of issues. So Siyar means jihad, right? So we say Sirah, right? Sirah by default is military campaigns, right? That's the backbone of the Sirah is military campaigns. And some authors of the Sirah they only begin from the Medinan period because the Medinan period is the beginning of jihad, right? So they're looking at it as like the political history of Islam. But there's no political history of Islam before the Medinan period. If that makes sense. Okay, so anyway, so it says Imam Muhammad says yes, with permission, without permission. You found that area next to Cyprus. You took hold of it. You demarked it with a fence, whatever it is. It's yours. Go ahead, right? And he says, وأما أبو حنيفة فقال لا يكون له إلا أن يجعلها له الإمام. So the Imam, basically, you are always working in anything military. You're always working on behalf of the ruler, and the ruler decides what to do with the land. So you cannot, it doesn't just become yours through like that. قال وينبغي للإمام إذا أحياها أن يجعلها له. He said, you're the one who conquered that island. You're the one who took that island. The Imam should give it to him. وإن لم يفعل لم تكن له. But if you don't, it's not yours. Right? So you basically, it is not analogous to picking up a leaf. I'm walking in the middle of I'm in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and I get a fish, that's mine. I don't need the permission of the Khalifa for that. But Imam Abu Hanifa says no, but in terms of land, yes, you do. Right? Land is basically anything you do, you are under the ruler. Whereas Imam Muhammad saying, no, you're not. Right? It's your piece of land. Right? So Imam Abu Hanifa uh, is I don't know which side. Left wing. So are they left wing or right wing? It's kind of difficult to put these two things there, right? Some ways Imam Muhammad is right wing, that khalas, it's my property, nothing to do with the government, right? Allahu A'lam. So we will see a number of things in the Hanafi school specifically, that where we see more emphasis on the government than the other schools, right? So for example, Jumu'ah. So Jumu'ah is a religio-political thing. We all agree on that, right? We all agree that Jumu'ah is a religio-political thing. Yeah, because he understands what it is, right? Understands what it is. Okay. So anyway, so the Hanafis then they say, in the same kind of idea, that Jummah is not valid without the Imam because of of its nature, right? Whereas the majority of scholars say no, you can have Jummah without permission, it's fine, right? Another important thing to understand is the Imam, right? So when Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Khadi Abu Yusuf are talking, there's originally there's already two or more Imams in reality. When you see Imam, meaning the ruler, right? Because since 131, right? We're in what year now? 1447, is that right? Is that the year right now? 1447? Yeah, something like that, okay? So now since 131, the Ummah has not been united. So for the last 1,300, what? And 16 years, the Ummah has not been united. There has never been a ruler, right? There have been rulers, right? The Ummah has not been united. So at this time, Qadi Abu Yusuf, he is so Imam Abu Hanifa is intentionally uninvolved in politics. Imam Muhammad is not involved in politics, but the other student of Imam Abu Hanifa, Qadi Abu Yusuf, is Chief Justice of the Abbasid Empire, right? And he's in charge of fiscal policy, right? So Islam is 100% involved in politics and things, right? So he is Chief Justice. At that time, the Ummah is already split. That's already happened, right? Imam Abu Hanifa passed away in 150. So 19 years before he passed away, the Ummah split in half. Umayyads, Abbasids, right? So they're part of the Abbasids. There was an Abbasid revolution that came from the east, from Khurasan, came from the east, took over Central Asia, Iran, Iraq, Levant. Did they go into Egypt? And then they went into Egypt and took over Egypt. Yeah. So then basically from, I don't know where the line was. You have basically Egypt, the Levant, Iraq, Arabia, Iran, Central Asia, the Sind, right? That's under the Abbasids. Okay. And at that time as well, a lot of the stans, like Kyrgyz, a lot of those things, they weren't Muslim yet. So basically the Muslims, they're going to be in Iran and southern Afghanistan, but they're going to be going, when you say later on, what's happening is obviously the Mongols haven't become Muslim yet, but they're basically fighting these Turkic tribes, right? And these Turkic tribes will eventually become Muslims through the later on with the Ayub, no, what's it called? With the what are they called? Seljuks and things like that, right? So these are Turkic tribes, but initially at that time they're going to be fighting these Turkic tribes, right? So then Spain is under the Umayyads, Morocco, Tunisia, right? And I don't know where exactly the line was, but basically there are these two powers now, right? So when you say the permission of the ruler, which ruler, right? So it's important to understand, like, oh, that doesn't apply. Doesn't apply because there's, Muslims are not united yet. Muslims have not been united for 1,300 years. Important to understand. Okay, so the next point it says باب الصلح في الشرب وقسمة الماء. Right? So he says أخبرنا مالك قال أخبرنا عبد الله ابن أبي بكر. Right? So this is Abdullah ibn Bakr ibn Amr ibn Hazm, I believe. Here he says here. Ibn Muhammad. So he is Abdullah ibn Bakr ibn Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Hazm. Right? So there's a huge gap in the chain here. So what's happening is the following. Malik is narrating from this person here, Abdullah. Okay? His father or grandfather is a Sahabi, right? And the Prophet wrote a letter to his grandfather, if I remember correctly. Right? Um, okay. So basically, so you will find certain things like that, so I'm pretty sure that's saying so. This is in that letter, for example, it mentions about not touching the mushaf without wudu. Right? That's one of those proofs for it, like it's in that letter, etc. So anyway, basically, there's a descendant of somebody of a Sahabi who was sent a letter. So when it says that, so Malik says that this grandson of a Sahabi said that the Prophet said, there's a gap in the chain, a big gap in the chain in reality. Right? So not saying he's a liar, not saying that he's trying to change the truth. We're just trying to say we don't know where the sources are, therefore there's a question mark. That's all. أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال في سيل مهزور ومذينب يمسك حتى يبلغ الكعبين ثم يرسل الأعلى على الأسفل. Right. So he's talking about the sail. Right. We use this in Urdu, right? Sail, like like a flood or something like that. Sail ab, don't we say that in Urdu? It's just Amina Azhar. That's how you speak Urdu, right?
No, my mother tongue is Malayalam.
Okay.
I do speak a bit of Urdu. That's
Okay. Anyway, the word sail, sale yasil in Arabic means to flow. Sail is basically you have dry area. Every now when the rain comes, that becomes a stream and then it goes away, like temporary streams. So he says, and the Rasulullah قال في سيل مهزور ومذينب. These are two tribes. Um, yeah. So what should you do? He says يمسك. It should be blocked. حتى يبلغ الكعبين until it reaches the level of your ankles. ثم يرسل الأعلى على الأسفل. And then you can then let it go, so then it spreads, right? So this is about organizing water. So when it rains, how are we going to organize this water? Okay? How are we going to organize this water? It's basically however you work it out. This is shared property, shared access. You work it out how you want. It says قال محمد وبه نأخذ لأنه كان كذلك الصلح بينهم لكل قوم ما اصطلحوا وأسلموا عليه من عيونهم وسيولهم وأنهارهم وشربهم. Right? Every tribe, when this tribe uh, uh, became Muslim, or when this tribe agreed with the government, whatever agreement they have, that's how it's going to stay, basically. Right? So it's simple as that, how it works out. And then the commentators all mentions that there's no, I don't want to go further. That's basically how it is. And it says, أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا عمرو بن يحيى عن أبيه. I heard this term applied to the paved area. It's called sail. Yeah, because it's probably where the water flows. Yeah. So yeah, There's this area in Amman in the Balad. So the Balad, that's the bottom area next to the it's called Saqf al-Sayr. So the roof of the flow. So you can imagine when the rain comes, that's as high as it goes, and then it stops and it becomes dry. You know exactly. Tended to have flash floods. Yeah, same. Yeah. So why do they have flash floods? Is because the earth is not porous. So the water comes in and it doesn't absorb anything. So then it just, where does it go? And it obviously can be dangerous. It can be, Allah protect us. So أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا عمرو بن يحيى عن أبيه عن الضحاك بن خليفة ساق خليجا له حتى النهر الصغير من العريض فأراد أن يمر أن يمر به في أرض لمحمد بن مسلمة فأبى محمد بن مسلمة فقال الضحاك لما تمنعني ولك منفعة تشرب به أولا وآخرا ولا يضرك فأبى فكلم فيه عمر الخطاب فدعا محمد بن مسلمة فأمره أن يخلي سبيله فأبى قال عمر لا تمنع أخاك ما ينفعه وهو لك نافع تشرب به أولا وآخرا ولا يضرك قال محمد لا والله فقال عمر والله لا يمرن به ولو على بطنك فأمره عمر أن يجريه. Okay, so there's an issue of property rights here. So he says, I want this water to flow through your property. And he says, no. He says, why not? You'll benefit from it going through your property. He said, no. He goes to say, no, Umar, right? MashaAllah, welcome to Pakistan, right? Correct, sister Amina? This is classic
I didn't get that.
Property debates, right? So there's two people, there's two lands, and he wants the water to go through one property and go to the next one. So he's saying, let the water go through your property so it comes to me. And he says, no. He says, why not? It's not going to harm you. No, right? This is the farmer's like, no, you can't go on my property. Even if it helps me, you can't do it, right? So may Allah protect us,
True.
right? Classic, alhamdulillah. So subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us arrogance and gives us stubbornness to be used in the right way. What should arrogance be used? Is that I don't accept foul behavior for myself. Right? You have izzat nafs. There's pride and izzat nafs. They're not the same. Like I don't accept myself to do something like that. That's called pride. That's good pride. And stubborn, I will not, even if I keep failing, I will not stop fighting my nafs. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you stubbornness for. But we use it for the wrong thing. Right? May Allah protect us. Anyway, so he says, why? So then he goes to Sayyidina Umar, and Sayyidina Umar says, let him, you're going to benefit from it. He's going to benefit from it. Let the water go through. And he says, no. So then Sayyidina Umar, in his capacity as al-Imam, he's the ruler, as al-Wali al-Am, he has, right? He has al-Wali al-Am, he says, Wallahi, la yamurranna bihi, لا يمرن به ولو على بطنك. He says, even if he has to go, even if the water has to pass over your stomach, he's going to do that, right? So what's happening here is I have property, you have property. I can't do anything with your property without your permission. You can't do anything with my property without your permission. Even if you can't do anything. So we have to go to a higher authority. Okay, so now Umar is that higher authority. He's not acting in his capacity as a brother, as an advisor, or as a mufti. So a mufti does not have authority over you. A mufti is just you just ask him a question. He's just an specialist, right? It's like a surgeon. You go to a surgeon, ask him a question. He says, he gives you an answer. You didn't sign that. In fact, you went with the surgeon. You tell the surgeon stop. They have to stop, right? That's it. They can't do things by their own degree. The police, right? They can stop you. The police can stop your car. Police can stop you building in a certain way. The government can do that. So the Muslim government has that authority over you, right? So you have a problem with somebody, you have to take it to the authorities. You can't just solve it by yourself. You can't take the thing. There's no vigilantism in Islam. That doesn't exist. Does everyone know what that means? Vigilantism? Like, I'm going to take this into my own. You're doing something haram, I'm going to do this. You can't do that, right? Hey, I saw my neighbor taking some random woman into his house. I'm going to go and break that door down and kill that guy. It's haram. You can't do that. Can't do that. Nothing to do with you, right? There's nothing to do with you. If someone's dying, you hear somebody dying, yes, you can go and save somebody, break the door down, save somebody. There's a fire, fine. But if it's not like that, you can't go in and you can't do these things, right? You have to, oh, Batman, yeah, you can't do these things, right? So vigilantism is not acceptable in Islam. You have to go to the authority, right? So we always have to be careful when we're reading a hadith or a quote like this. Are these people talking to Sayyidina Umar in his capacity as a mufti or capacity as a qadi? They're not the same. Qadi is invested with temporal, worldly power from the Muslim ruler. A mufti is not. A mufti is just a scholar. That's all, right? Now, some muftis are qadis. Okay, so you might have, for example, the Grand Mufti of this country who's with authority invested in him from the ruler of the country to announce Ramadan. That's different. That's like a Qadi. But the default is he's just called Mufti, but he's actually a Qadi, right? Or a Qadi in certain domains, you know? But you go to the Mufti and he says, oh, you two are divorced. That doesn't mean you're divorced. That means you're divorced according to his opinion. You go to the Qadi and he says, you two are divorced. That's it. End of story. You're divorced. What can you do about it? You know, you go to the Mufti and he says, you owe your wife this much money, right? He's like, okay, morally, you can listen to him or not listen to him. It's up to you. I don't know if you want to follow him, you don't follow him, that's it. You go to the Qadi, if you don't listen, it's going to be taken from you whether you like it or not. They can imprison you, they can, you know, freeze your assets, all these kind of things, right? It's different. So one is temporal, worldly power, the other one is not, right? Does it make sense, inshallah?
Yes.
Okay. Now, importantly, I live in a non-Muslim country. Okay. You live in a non-Muslim country. Is there such thing as a wali al-am? Is there somebody who has authority over me in that sense? They don't. They don't. So, I'm living in America with Azhar. Azhar drives into my car. I'm like, oh my God, Azhar, you just drove into my car. I said, no, 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 you were parked in the wrong place. So it's actually your fault. I said, Habibi, it's your fault. You were driving too fast. You smashed into my car. This is going to cost me $500 to fix. He says, no, 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 it's your fault. You were parked too far out. So who's going to solve this? Either we go to a third party and we both agree. Okay, Salah, you're going to judge between us. Okay, we did tahkim, arbitration. We can do that. Okay, but if we go to a non-Muslim court and say, I don't take you to court, then that's problematic. Okay, so because if there's an issue of ijtihad, that non-Muslim does not have authority over me or him. So it doesn't count. So if it's something crystal clear, right? Crystal clear. You know that basically all scholars would agree on this. That's something different. Like I know 100% I have this right. And let's say, for example, I'm sane, healthy, everything. My wife's taken away, or my ex has taken away all custody. I can't even, no visitation rights for no reason. It's totally wrong. 100%. Every single scholar I talk to, like 100% that's wrong. Just messed up, right? I'm not allowed to see my kids ever, right? And so now I go to this court and I'm pushing, I'm paying the lawyer to get visitation rights, right? That's fine. So something that everybody will agree on, like 100% Azhar, it's Farid's fault, 100%. So as I say, yeah, I'm going to go to non-Muslim court then, because I'm going to get my right. I'm basically going to practically use this non-Muslim to give me what is my Shari'i right. But the issue is when it's not clear, is it your Shari'i right or is it not? They can't make that decision. Say, no, Omar can, the judge can, right? You could look at it in two ways, and the judge looked at it in one way. Done. Khalas. But right, but using a non-Muslim court, right, to get your rights that may or may not be your rights, that is seriously problematic, right? And how's that important in America or in England as well? In terms of divorce, what happens after in divorce?
I mean, just speaking from friends, they'll get the advice of the sheikh, and then one party won't like what they say, and then they just run to the court and then
Good, but with
take everything anyway.
a certain financial right that the woman will get. What's it called?
The
And
Yeah, alimony, right? So
yeah,
so he had five restaurants when they divorced. So they're like, yeah, this guy's wealthy. Yeah, you should have, and it's like that's not your right at all. I remember Sheikh Faraz Rabbani, he asked me to research that. 2 weeks I did that, asking different muftis, asking this person that, but they're like, no, that's not a right she has at all. So she in court, she's like, it's not my fault. The court gave me that. So it is your fault, sister. No, it's not money that you have. If you're going to marry a wealthy man or somebody who's going to be wealthy, ask for a big mahar. That's what you should do. He's going to be a doctor. Say, I want $2 million. Because if you're gonna make 500,000 a year, okay, then that's not very much to ask for $2 million, right? Now, obviously, he might say, "Sweetheart, uh, you're not worth it." Okay, I mean that's supply and demand, right? That's something else, right? But at the end of the day, it's like you want security, like you are both doctors, okay, and you're both working. You're both gonna. The view is like you're gonna be working in California. He is, near the end. You can say like, listen, I'm not asking for a lot now, but when we get, if may Allah protect us, if there's a divorce, it's $2 million. So he's like, okay, you better think pretty hard before you divorce her, number one. And number two, he's going to be paying that for a long time. That's halal. What you cannot do is a right that you don't have, and you say, well, I want it now because the court's going to give it to me, right? So it's like the mafia. The mafia will defend you. Okay, great, go ahead. The mafia will force me to pay you money. Okay. And I don't have a choice because the mafia is the mafia. Okay. But that doesn't make it halal, does it? It doesn't make it halal. Whereas the qadi follows a position that's weird for that position, this position. It doesn't matter what it is. You're in, it doesn't matter who it is, whether you agree with them, you don't agree with them. The qadi said this. You have to give this person that money. Done. End of story. Because they actually have an authority over you. Right? So again, going to a non-Muslim court is only a scenario where this is definitely I have this right, and there's no else to get that right. On a lighter note, my husband's non-Muslim sister-in-law has left her husband on his retirement after more than showing his pension and huge savings which were in their account without a word. There we go, subhanAllah. Yeah, but that's haram, right? No, but the thing is, this is the issue. Here's another issue, Sister Amina, okay? Joint account. Who owns a joint account?
My understanding is that a lot of the saving was in her account only.
So whose money is it then?
From her husband's salary, he used to work with the UN.
I know, but so if the money goes into her account, whose is it?
Hers, I guess.
Hers. So this is a problem that many people will do, right? Like my wife and I, right? I'm gonna pause this, okay?